Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How you doing, David?
Pretty good. Having some cereal.
I had my oatmeal this morning already. Good morning. Let's turn on your cameras and see those beautiful faces out there. See who's awake, who's still in their PJs. Slowly trickling in. We only got 44 people in this morning. What's going on? Did I miss the party last night? No? So any questions about your group project? I have two more meetings with the groups today at 10 and 10:15. We'll probably move those up a little bit. If any other groups want to meet with me today, I have a little bit of time. We can do that. I know the first meeting with some of the groups, you guys weren't quite sure yet what you wanted to do, which is fine. That's why we have a meeting. Get you on the right track. How is everybody doing? Let's see. Let's get those cameras turned on. Everybody's awake. Good morning, Rosa.
Good morning.
All right. Give it a couple more minutes. Any questions? Anything about the book? Pretty exciting book, isn't it? Don't blame me, I didn't pick it.
It was very thrilling.
Yeah, I know. That's why I supplement a lot of stuff. For group 5, yes, you did schedule your second meeting at 10:45. If you want to move that up, we can do that to 10:30. What do you think, Earl?
Professor, I think it will be fine with the group.
Okay, sounds good. I think Earl's still asleep. No? Yeah, okay.
I was trying to ask the group.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. All right, shall we get started? Exciting stuff today. We got all kinds of good stuff to talk about. All right, so week 7 already. Only 3 more weeks to go. You guys excited? 3 more weeks until the final. All right. So this week we're going to talk about Chapter 9, International Strategy, and Chapter 10, Innovative Strategy. Your book uses Blockbuster and Lincoln Electrical to demonstrate these concepts, and we will talk about that. Okay, so everybody ready for the quiz? We don't do quizzes. But if this was a regular class, we'd have a quiz. What are the 5 main reasons firms expand into international markets? So what are some of the reasons? You guys all read the chapter and did the paper, right? Let's hear it. What do you got, Jared?
One of the reasons is to increase sales because they may be hitting a plateau in their own home country, so they may want to expand to other countries to continue growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Growth is one. David, what do you got?
Competition. They usually do whatever their competitors do.
Absolutely. Yep. Nguyen sisters, what do you girls have? New?
Would just growth of the company itself be one of them, or just trying to learn different markets?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So which one's the good twin and which one's the evil twin? I'm just teasing. All right, Martha, what do you got? Martha.
What was your question?
The question was the quiz. What are the 5 main reasons firms expand into international markets? You read the chapter, right? Omar?
Yes, I have.
Okay. What do you got, Omar? Andalib looks like she wants to answer a question too.
To increase in efficiency and increase economies of scale and scope.
That'll work.
It also grows their target market and their customer base.
Correct.
It also reduces costs.
Yes. So a lot of times companies will expand because their competitors are expanding or their customers will want to want their products. For example, everybody wants the Apple phone. Not everybody can afford it, but Apple tries to expand as much as they can and sell to certain markets. Okay. Knowledge base, managing risk, efficiency, and growth are the 5 main ones. Okay, so chapter 9 is all about international strategy, and your book used Lincoln Electric as an example, how they almost went bankrupt going into, I think it was France. And what Lincoln Electric tried to do was try to expand. They tried to grow into international market. And what this was is a lot of their, like Walmart, you have one type of strategy and you think you can just copy it and move it to another part of the world. Well, it didn't work for them. They almost went bankrupt. They didn't have a strategy. They just figured they'd just do what they've been doing successfully. And it didn't really work. What happened was they used a piecework payment system. So so you would get paid for actually completing work. They would do this on year-end bonuses and guaranteed employment. And most countries, especially in Europe, have guaranteed employment through the government. So that wasn't something that was really a big issue to most employees there, workers. Why why are you going to give guaranteed employment when we already have it? So most countries already have that in place. Their laws made it, their incentive program, most of the laws in some of the, in France, especially France, made it obsolete or illegal. So they didn't do any research. They could have done a Pastel analysis, but they didn't do anything. So what frameworks would you guys use if you guys were going to go into a foreign country? What do you think would be a good framework beside the Pastel?
If they have like a lot of customers or a lot of people that you think you could sell to.
Yeah, so you would kind of like look at what the customer base is. But as far as the political and economical things, what would you use to look into that? What kind of a framework would you use besides Pastel?
Professor, can I maybe try to answer that?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So like one thing that I saw is that Tesla was trying to enter the market for the Chinese car market, since their pollution and carbon emissions are so high. So they only have like a couple of electric vehicles right now. So they were trying to enter that market to obviously start producing and manufacturing cars there over in China to even match their car volume in America right now. And they're currently producing like their Model 3, and like they're doing a crossover to the Model Y. And I think they're producing like 5,000 units over there in China now, like a week. In order to combat the high tariffs for like importing cars over there. So I think that maybe like that's one of them, just seeing like the that can be like the environmental factor to try to get like, carbon and pollution emissions down over in China.
Correct.
Something like that.
Not just China, but several other countries are that way too.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of framework you would use something, maybe a SWOT framework in addition to a PESO framework, where the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you a 5 forces analysis, that would give you some insight into what your competitors are doing in that market.
Absolutely. So you are going to do not just one framework. You're not just going to do a PESTEL framework or a SWOT framework. You're also going to look at it from the 5 forces framework. So you're going to look at it from quite different sides. You're not just going to jump in there blind like the electrical company did, but many companies do that. The example, your case study that you're doing today or this week is the Samsung, right? So it started out as what was it, Panasonic, or it started out as I think it was Panasonic, and then how the different companies took kind of they were in the same category, and they took different leads over different periods of times. Philips, Panasonic, and Samsung. So all of those people saw, or those companies saw the opportunity to grow, and they saw the opportunity in different markets, and they capitalized on that. And so we're going to explain the difference between, a global market or, just doing business internationally. But example for the strength and weaknesses, those are all internal, that we remember that. And then opportunities and threats, those are all external, which will, you bring your PESTEL and your Porter's 5 forces into that. Okay, questions so far? PESTEL, probably be a good final exam question. What do you guys think? Take a company and do a PESTEL on it? That'd be good. That'd be a good question, right? No, don't do it. Okay. All right. So when I was in Turkey, we used a 6D model to open up a remanufacturing toner cartridge plant. So I also traveled there and did some international business. We went to a sock factory, leather goods. So we did a few other things. And Turkey, the people in Turkey are quite a bit different than the employees here or people here in the United States and with other countries. And so how can you tell if it's a good country to bring your business to, and how you're going to relate to that? Okay, so the 6D model is an example of that. The 6T model is Gertz Hofstetter is the guy who did this. Okay. So if you go to his website, you can find any country in the world, and they will give you a 60 model of that country. For an extra fee, they'll actually do a lot of managing and consulting. So if you decide that you want to open up a plant in China, or specifically a region in China, a province, so they would go and do all the give you the information about that country, about its employees, and what it'd be like, what you need to know to do business in that country. So the 6 different, I don't know why they call this 6 Ds, but there's only 1 D in there. Power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, pragmatism, and indulgence. Okay, this information I'm giving you is not in your book, so pay attention. Okay. So the power distance, this dimension deals with the fact that all individuals in society are not equal. Turkey scores high on this dimension. They score 66, which means that the following characteristics of the Turkey style, very dependent, they're hierarchical, superior is often inaccessible. So many other countries are like this too. For example, China, the boss is a father figure. Power is centralized and managers rely on their bosses on rules. Employees expect to be told what to do, and control is expected. Attitude towards manager is very formal. So they have a very formal attitude towards their bosses. The bosses are supposed to act like heads of households, like a father figure, and they do that with their employees. And so it is very very respectful type of configuration in the workplace. Okay. So individualism, the degree of independence of a society maintains among its members, whether its people's self-image is defined in terms of I or we. Turkey scores 37, is a collective society. This means that the we is important. So to them, the group is very important. Communication is indirect. Harmony of the group has to be maintained. So everybody tries to keep everybody happy within the group. Open conflicts are avoided. You're not going to see somebody being challenged in the workplace all the time. This is very prevalent with a lot of different cultures. So relationships have a moral base, and this always has priority over task fulfillment. So time must be invested initially to establish a relationship of trust. So you build relationship with your employees, or nepotism, which means you hire family into a position. And feedback is always indirect. So when your boss says something, your feedback is not directly to them. Like here in the United States, where you say, "What the hell are you thinking? That's just stupid." You would never say that in a different culture. All right. Shouldn't say that here, but you know, a lot of people do. Okay, masculinity. I didn't do this, so don't give me a hard time about it. Masculine indicates society will be driven by competition, achievement, and success. A low score, feminine, on the dimension means that the dominant values in society are caring for others and quality of life. So more of a nurturing thing, femininity, as masculine is more of a competitive thing. So appreciate the softer aspects of culture, leveling with others, being truthful. The consensus, sympathy of the underdog are valued and encouraged. Conflicts are avoided in private work life. Leisure time is important. The whole family, clans, friends come together and enjoy life. Turkey is more on the feminine side. So when you set up a company in that, you really have to know this. So the leisure time is very important. You can't work them 90 hours a week. They're going to get really pissed off and not do a good job. The family is a very big thing. Like also in Middle Eastern cultures, family, when you go out to a restaurant, they actually have booths and that do the whole family and they're private. Okay, so there's kind of these different things that you need to know. Uncertainty avoidance has to do with the way that a society deals with the fact that the future can never be known. Here in the United States, we kind of have the attitude that we kind of create our own future. Many cultures believe that it just happens. Turkey scores 85 in this mission, thus they have a huge need for laws and rules. Ambiguity brings with it anxiety. So if you don't know what's going to happen, you're going to be not very happy. You're going to be have a lot of anxiety about that. So that does a lot of rituals. Foreigners might seem religious with the many reference to Allah, but often they are just traditional social patterns. So they're not fanatical type things. They're just, they're not quite sure what's going to happen. So it's a little bit different attitude towards that. Pragmatism describes how every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with the challenge of the present and future societies. Priority with these two essential goals different. Turkey scores 46 in the middle of the scale, so they're right in the middle. Low scores on this dimension prefer to maintain time-honored traditions, norms, while viewing societal change with suspicion. So you're not really open to change. A lot of the people that don't like change, some do, especially younger, they do like change, but a lot of times it's more traditional, and you want to keep it that way. Indulgence, the extent to which people try to control their desire and impulse based on the way they were raised. It's an intermediate score of 49. A characteristic corresponding to this dimension cannot be determined for Turkey, so they're kind of not really, they can't really determine which way they are going on there. So relatively weak score. So they show a little bit of restraints. Cultures can therefore be described as indulgent or restrained. With new technology, they're breaking out of embracing their indulgence with new businesses. So technology actually helps a lot in this. The more technologically advanced they become, the more indulgence they become. India is a perfect example of this, with all the new entrepreneurs that are being created in India. Okay, so this is at a glance what it looks like. So Turkey's culture through the lens of the 60 model, and you can do this for any country. You go to their website, you plug in what country, and you can see how their people labor force really is and what their work beliefs are. Okay, so your book's example of all of this, they don't quite go into depth like we just did, and we can actually even go into more depth, but I don't want to put you guys to sleep. Okay, so cultural distance, the degree of difference between the cultures of two nations. So the different languages, for example, the United States and the UK, we speak the same languages. Basically, we have the same mix of ethnical backgrounds, ethnicity backgrounds. The religions are very similar. Social norms are very similar. So the cultural distance between the UK and the United States is very small, as opposed to the United States and China, which completely different languages, completely different religions, social norms are completely different. Okay, but we still get along and we still do business, right? So just because there's a culture difference doesn't mean necessarily that you can't do business. Okay, so administrative differences between the legal and regulatory frameworks of two nations. For example, the EU came up with a common currency. Okay, so many countries use the same currency. So they share the same monetary system. South America, a lot of South American countries use the dollar, the US dollar. So government and policies, many of those are the same throughout the world, and many of them are very, very different. Okay, so geographic differences. When we were in Turkey, a lot of the laborers came from Northern Africa. So their cultures weren't that dissimilar, but as opposed to workers in the United States, as opposed to Portugal or Spain or France, the language is a difference. So that's a big barrier. They don't have a common border. They have the North Atlantic Sea in between them. So you can't just drive right over within a half hour, or plane ride within a couple hours. And so the transportation infrastructure is weak, and difference in climate. So all of those are examples of geographical difference. Okay. Excuse me. So economical difference, the degree of difference between the average income of the people in the two different countries. We use Tata Motors for an example of that earlier in our book. So Tata Motors, what they did is they kind of treated their car company like a scooter company in India, right? So a lot of these times they don't have the infrastructure to support the type of car companies that you're used to here in the United States. So they brought in their own people to do driving school. So they teach the people how to do driving school and all these other different types of things, because they just couldn't do a setup like they do here in the United States, where they have a car dealership and you go and buy your car there, you get your driver's license somewhere else, you learn how to drive somewhere else. So you have to do the economic distance. That's a perfect example of that. So do we have questions so far? How we doing? So those are the two different types of things that you do when you want to look into the different types of labor markets in different countries. All right, so now we're going to go over some of the definitions that your book has. Foreign direct investment in production or business in one country by a business from another. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Multinational firms that sell or produce in multiple countries, and globalization. So the two different things between multinational firms is a multinational firm will be in a couple of different countries. Globalization will be all over the globe. So Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they're everywhere, right? They're a global business. Okay, so strategy is a global set of policies designed to achieve competitive advantage in a particular marketplace. And global strategy is a goal and set of policies to achieve advantage by leveraging sources, assets, knowledge across geographical markets. So not just like Southwest Airlines, how their strategy is only a few different airlines are their competitors, and all they do is one thing in one general area of the United States. Global strategy is totally opposite, where they take into consideration everything. You guys asleep yet? Do you have to call in somebody? All right. Some of the differences between countries that increase complexity and affect the success of international strategy include customers' taste. Remember, we talked about the different formulas for Coca-Cola and Pepsi, depending on what country they're in, how the taste is different. Needs and income levels. Obviously, some of the products made here in the United States are not going to meet the income levels in third world countries. Government regulations are always different. And somebody has their microphone turned on. Can you please turn it off? And then government regulations, legal systems. Sometimes they're very similar, sometimes they're very different. Sometimes they're non-existent. And then public tolerance for foreign firms. Many countries don't want to have anything to do with the United States or other countries. And so moving a public firm into that country would not be a good idea. For example, when we were in Turkey, there were banks from all over the world that opened up branches in there. And the reason they did that is because, one, the legal system and the government regulations were very low, barriers to entry. And two, the best way to get a currency is to open up a bank in that country. So the reliability and basic infrastructure, remember we talked about how Walmart was very unsuccessful in going into India, and that was because of the infrastructure. If anybody's ever driven down the 405 freeway, you notice that there's 14 lanes of traffic, 7 lanes of traffic in each way. That's something you don't see in other countries. It's just unheard of. So that type of infrastructure and freeway system that Walmart depends on here in the United States to get their goods moved from location to location doesn't exist in a lot of different countries. All right. So why firms expand internationally? So we have the strategic objectives, efficiency, managing risk, and learning. So the national differences, difference in factory cost, expend product life cycle. For example, cigarettes. Here in the United States, everybody's quitting smoking. They're basically, or they're dying. And the cigarette companies had to actually go to a different country in order to expand the product life cycle. So they moved there into the Middle East, into South America. So that's how they would do that would be an example of doing that, extending a product life cycle. First mover advantage, that's always with Pepsi and Coca-Cola trying to get into a different country. Whoever gets there first usually puts a good foothold in there. So economies of scale, creating economies of scale like General Motors did. Many of the car companies are trying to do that, Toyota. So when you get into a different country, you can actually create an economies of scale or create an economy of scale combining many different countries like Panasonic, Philips, and Samsung has done. All right, so the cage is the cultural, administrative, geographic, and economic, determine the success of going into a global economy. The smaller the distance, the better. Local responsiveness, a firm's adjustment to products, services, and processes in order to account for local culture and needs. Soft drinks have a different formula for different countries, which I've said many, many times. Standardization, making products and or processes consistent across different units with a firm, different countries. For example, McDonald's. So when McDonald's goes into a foreign country, they basically have the same products, but then again, they also have a standardized product, but they also cater to that country. So many of you who've gone to different countries and had McDonald's, you're probably pretty surprised to see some of the different items on the menu if you're used to just seeing what we offer here in the United States, right? So who here has been to a McDonald's in a different country? Or know about a McDonald's in a different country?
I have.
What'd you find interesting about it?
What was really weird is that they had like a second part of McDonald's called like a McCafe, which was like a Starbucks kind of thing, which was really weird because it's like McDonald's, dude. Like McDonald's coffee is like $1, but in America, but there it's like Starbucks.
What country was that?
I forgot. I think it was like Hong Kong, like China.
Okay. Who else has been to a different McDonald's?
And that's how it was in Spain too. They have like a little cafe area in the bottom, and you go up the stairs, and then the restaurant is at the top. And when you order food, there's huge lines for all the registers, but you actually wait there until they make it and give it to you, and then you leave. So it's not like you get a number and then you come back and get it. You have to wait there until they give it to you.
Yeah, we're in this big, huge plaza in Spain, and there was, there's 500, 600, 700-year-old buildings, and there's this McDonald's at the bottom of one. It was funny. But yeah, we're in Spain, the plaza. Anybody been to a McDonald's in the Middle East or in India?
I've been to the one in India, and like the food is just like completely different. They have a lot of like spices in their burgers and vegetarian options, non-vegetarian. And then I've also been to the one in Hong Kong, and I like noticed the same thing, the cafe thing.
Yeah. So the obviously beef's not going to be a real big seller in India. So they have to do something to, offset that to be successful. So they cater. So they have their standard menu, and then they have something, different to appease the local palates, right? So anybody else? South America? They love beef down there. So.
The one in Brazil, and they're mostly in like shopping malls. And it's like really expensive. It's like considered like fancy food to eat there.
Yeah, when we were in Ecuador, the Pizza Hut was the fine dining. So, all right. Anybody else? The standardization, global integration, the standardization of process with a single business in different locations around the world. But we just talked about McDonald's. Multi-domestic strategy emphasizes local responsiveness over a standardization. Global strategy emphasizes global standardization and economies of scale over local responsiveness. So the patties and the buns that you get at McDonald's are actually all frozen and made here and distributed throughout the world, except, for the standardized part of it. And then the localized part, the multi-domestic strategy is the standardization, but also the responsiveness to the taste of the locals, of the local population. Arbitrage strategy takes advantage of a country comparative advantages, sources of low cost, labor, or unique resources like skilled workers. Excuse me. So for example, in Turkey, we went to the sock factory. So the three brothers there, they own the sock factory, and they manufacture socks for Europe and the Middle East, and for United States. So what they did is they took advantage of the low cost of the labor there. So a pair of socks would actually cost them 30 cents to make, and they sold to Yves Saint Laurent and all these other high-end companies for, which were selling their socks for $10, $15, $20 a pair. And it would cost them actually 30 cents to make because of the labor cost and the materials cost of making socks in Turkey. Arbitrage strategies is simultaneously buying and selling of securities, currency, or commodities in different markets or in derivative firms in order to take advantage of different prices for the same asset. One of the professors I know does business in Canada, and just the exchange rate between Canada and the United States, he makes money on his financial products. So that's kind of an example of how they do that. So you can actually make money just transferring one product to one country from another country, and just from the valuation of the currency. Remember the 3 C's that we talked about earlier: competitive advantage, configuration, coordination. So we can also apply those to a multi-domestic, global, and arbitrage type. Okay, and this is in your book. Read it, review it, love it, learn it. All right, more about the Big Mac. Competing international strategies and local responses versus standardization. Strategies deal directly with the tug of war between local responsiveness, cost reducing, standardized differently. So like we were talking about in India, the different products that they had, you notice you don't see the Big Mac there. So all the different products that they have, the vegan products, the apple pies, and of course the marketing is always the same. You'll see the golden arches. Okay. Arbitrage strategy takes advantage of a country's comparative advantages, source of low-cost labor, unique resources like skilled workers. So a lot of times, skilled workers, like for example in India, the United States has many, many call centers in India, and that's one reason, because is the large majority of the population in India and the workforce majority can speak English. Sometimes not very well. If you've ever been on a customer service call to India or Philippines or some of these other places, but they have that workforce that actually knows the language and it can actually communicate in it. So that is a good thing. All right, so economic arbitrage, capitalizing on difference in cost by buying where costs are low and selling where prices are high. I did some work for a remanufacturing company that built a plant of remanufacturing toners in Turkey. The reason they did that is because the cost was extremely low. The labor force, they had a great labor force that was good at assembling things. And the geographical area of Istanbul, right outside of Istanbul, went from north, you can hit Northern Europe, Western Europe, and then Africa. And so it was kind of a centralized place. And if you know anything about the region, you will know that spices are very prevalent there, because they are of the location that they are. They get spices from that whole region, which was kind of interesting. But that's another class. Okay, so who here has heard of the Big Mac Index? Yes, it is a real thing. So the Big Mac, okay. Maribel, go ahead. Tell me all about it.
I heard of it. I think it's in regards to like how much a Big Mac can change in regards to price. So the price difference in every country where it's produced, something like that.
It is. So they used to use a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk as a standardized thing. But since McDonald's has put a Big Mac in almost every country on the globe, they kind of made it a Big Mac index. So what it is a purchasing power parity over the long term, and it looks kind of like this. So if you're in Switzerland, it's going to cost you, this is a couple years old in 2018, so 676, and as opposed to the Ukraine, which is 3 times less at 164. So where would you rather have a Big Mac? In Switzerland or Ukraine? Or where would you rather pay for one, I should say? Probably the view's a little bit better in Switzerland, I would think. I don't know, Ukraine's pretty.
Way too cold.
What's that?
Ukraine is way too cold.
Yeah. But but you can see here through all the other different countries how they kind of vary. Japan and China are on the low end. Switzerland, Sweden, USA are on the high end. So the more industrialized the country, the more, I should say, shouldn't say that. I should say the more globally acceptance of different companies, the higher the price is going to be. Okay. So for example, making shoes, wooden shoes in Norway, in the those countries, is a capitalizing on difference in culture between countries by actively using the culture of the country as a selling point for products being marketed in another country. So when you have, you know, the United States is known for the hamburgers, they're known for their wooden shoes. So Ireland is known for the low tax rate that it has. I have a friend who works for these large corporate companies. He works for Nike, Google. He would go and open up branch offices in Ireland just so they can move all their money that they made in Europe through Ireland and only pay 12% tax, as opposed to the United States when they used to have to pay 35% tax. Okay, so this is another reason why you would go to a different country. For South America, the United States companies use the Cayman Islands to bank all their money. So Nike, Apple have billions of dollars sitting offshore in bank accounts that they don't bring into the United States because they don't want to pay 35% tax. Okay, so this kind of looks like the tax rate in Europe. So if you're in France and you have a corporate headquarters, do you think you'd rather have the corporate headquarters in France or in Ireland where you pay 12% as opposed to almost 35% tax? So everything you sell, you always have to pay your sales tax in whatever country you're in, but your profit, if you're in France, you have to pay 34.4% profit tax. But if you're in Ireland, you only pay 12.5. So do you see the advantage when you're talking about millions and millions of dollars? Okay, so this is what global countries do. This is one of the reasons why the United States lowered its tax rate to 21%, is because to keep companies from doing that. So that now they'll actually bring a headquarters or whatnot in our market and pay the 21% tax as opposed to not paying it. Okay. So competing internationally, a company competes only in a few foreign markets. It is an international multinational. Competing globally, a company competes in virtually the entire world's major countries and global competitors pursuing a market presence on cost continents. So globally, you want to spread out your costs throughout the whole globe. International, you're trying to get into different multinational markets and to a few, not the whole globe. All right. So everybody got their multi-quiz or mini quiz paper due in before class today, right? Yes, you did. All right. What do you mean no? If you didn't get it in, turn it in. Otherwise, you're going to take off a point. Samsung case. Dennis is one who does a grading on that. Don't blame me. All right. Samsung case number 4 due on Friday, 11:59 p.m. No class on Wednesday and no class on Friday next week. We have Thanksgiving break. So big plans. unless Gavin Newsom shuts the state down and tells nobody they can have Thanksgiving with their family. Wells Fargo mini case will be canceled. I'm not going to do that. That's in the syllabus. So I'm going to cancel that. We're just going to expand on the thumbtack case instead. Okay, so groups email me to make a second meeting. I know I have a second meeting with one group today, and I know a lot of the groups expressed that they wanted to meet with me a second time. Very good idea to do so. So do that. And do we have any questions, concerns? We're going to talk about Blockbuster next week, or not next week, Wednesday. So did I thoroughly bore you guys to death? Let's see who's asleep out there. No.
I just had a question about, you said that you were, I'm assuming you were in Istanbul, if that's the case, for the business that you were doing.
Uh-huh.
Those ratings, the numbers that you were saying in the beginning, like where you have like the masculinity and all those things, how do they get those numbers? Because I've been to Turkey, but I've been to the eastern part of Turkey, and it doesn't seem like those numbers would exactly be the same there.
Yeah. There's a research think tank, and if you go to their website, go look him up, go to their website, and they explain how they kind of get those numbers. And they do it for every country. And obviously, if you're doing that many numbers for every country, they're not going to be 100% accurate for what particular part. When we were there, there was a lot of civil unrest on the border.
Yeah.
With Greece. And so we kind of stayed in the western part of Istanbul, you know, because you know how the city's broken up into eastern and western parts. So it was safe. It was nice. But yeah, but you know, it's different from every country and every region you go to. Look how big Russia is. Look how big China is. Look how big the United States is. If you go to the southern part of the United States, as opposed to the southeast part or the southwest part, you know, it's quite different.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming that they were just kind of averages, but I don't know if they probably have indexes for like actually inside the country too, because if you're going to deal in a specific region, then it wouldn't make sense to use generic kind of information.
You know, like New York City pays $15 an hour for minimum wage. Alabama pays $7. You know, that's more than double.
Yeah.
No, so you know, obviously your workforce is going to be different, but they have one of the best ones. Been around for a long time, and if you're going to go into a foreign country and you don't know anything about that country, they are definitely the people to go do your research with.
All right.
All right. Questions, concerns? Everybody have a great day, and I will see you on Wednesday. And then the group that I'm supposed to meet with at 10 o'clock, which is group 7, let's meet right now. And then group 8 will meet in 15 minutes. And then group 5 will meet in 30 minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting. Stop recording.